Oh, very interesting. My great-grandmother also spoke German, and she was 18 when our city got occupied. And my great-grandfather was 19. And when Germans came into their house, they were hiding people in the basement, their neighbors. And she started speaking fluent German with one of the soldiers. And the soldier said, well, how do you know how to speak German, basically? And she was very talented. She said, I've learned it in school.
Yeah, some people. When you were born here or what?
I was born in Russia, and I moved here 20 years ago. I'm educated here. I graduated with an MBA from St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. And, I'm here.
Yeah.
Russian American.
Yeah. Good. William, 2 minutes to go, huh?
2 minutes. Yep, we're counting down. Olga also lived in Israel for 3 years.
Yes, I have.
When was that?
That was, I came back a little bit over 3 years ago. I was engaged to be married to an Israeli, Ashkenazi, Jewish boy.
Oh.
He's both actually, from his mom and from his mom and his dad's side. They were from Latvia and Poland.
Mm-hmm. Where did you stay in Israel?
I stayed in Tel Aviv and Kfar Shmayahu. That's where his parents have a house.
Oh, okay.
But we lived in central Tel Aviv by Rabin Square.
Mm-hmm.
From Latvia and Poland.
Mm-hmm. You don't travel, so you understand things.
I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I said, you well traveled, so you understand things.
Oh yes. I love traveling. I love different cultures, different languages. Absolutely.
You see, some people here in the United States, they are lacking in geography, and that means
and history.
yeah, that's.
So we're at 11. We're at 11 o'clock. Just give me 1 minute. I heard from Kevin. He said he doesn't have the meeting information. Sorry, just bear with me for a moment. We'll aim to start at 5 after at the latest. Hi, James.
Hey, William. Will, correct?
Yeah, William, whatever works for you. Both work for me. Not Bill typically, but
Same here. Hey, thanks for the invite and the info from your friend. We really appreciate it.
We'll kick off, and looks like we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people.
Okay.
So we should expect a couple more. Make that 9.
Yeah, Kevin was said he couldn't get it. He didn't have the link or something. He just sent it on the other page when I was dialing in.
Yeah, I just sent it to him. So hopefully he'll be on in a moment. Oh.
Hey.
Morning. So I think we're getting some feedback. If you wouldn't mind, we'll
Strange.
probably do a very quick introduction. But if you are you're not speaking, could you just mute the line?
And what's that background? Oh, now it stopped.
That's better.
Yes. All right.
No pictures of the others?
I guess not. That's okay. All right. So we're at, oh, what are we at here? All right. Looks like we have everybody. I just got a note from Kevin. He says he's having some difficulty joining, so I think we're clear to begin without him. So thanks everybody for coming to this talk. You know, I just wanted to thank Kevin for permitting me to making this available to the group. And I don't think I've met most of you. I know Scott and I know Wallace and I know Olga, but nice to see some of you in person. So my friend Wallace Bruschweiler is going to be talking to us today about a number of topics. I think you saw them in the agenda, about the election, about what the situation is politically in Europe and some developments in the Middle East. I think you also saw his biography, but in a very short summary, he's had a long career as a security consultant, and as a result of that has worked internationally with law enforcement and intelligence. In particular, he had a central role in fighting terrorism in Europe in the 70s and 80s, in Italy and France and Germany and the UK and many other countries in Europe. So he does have quite a unique experience. Wallace, you currently live in Florida, so anybody's wondering where he is. But kind of without further ado, I guess we can get started. And just so you all know, thanks for submitting your biographies. Thank you for submitting your biographies. I sent them to Wallace. The way that we're going to run this is we'll cover a topic, and then at the end of the topic, if people have questions, we can address them. I would just ask that if you are not speaking, if you could mute your phone or your Zoom meeting, it'd probably just improve the call quality. So Wallace, do you want to start with the first topic? The first topic being the server.
Okay, thank you for joining. And the topic, as I mentioned, was US elections and also the raid of the servers in Germany, Frankfurt. I think that we have to put them together with all the events linked to General Mike Flynn, because the raid in Frankfurt, as I understand it, was made possible by the work done by General Flynn, because he had to figure out the good and from the bad guys. I don't know if you're familiar with the background of Mike Flynn. He was torpedoed at the beginning of the venue of President Trump as his security advisor. The left managed to crucify him and get him out, and for 4 years, practically, he had no role. You have to understand the background of General Flynn is he was involved in intelligence and was head of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is, as far as I understand, a direct competitor to the CIA. So he managed to put together a group of his trusted people and sent them to Frankfurt. Now, I don't know if any of you have flown into Frankfurt Airport. It's a huge airport. It's one of the largest in Germany, if not in Europe, apart from Heathrow in London. Frankfurt am Main, it's called Frankfurt am Main, is because Frankfurt is on, the city is on two rivers, the Main and the Rhine. Coming back on the airport is divided into two. One is the civilian airport for the German and for the international traffic, and the other one is one of the largest US Air Force base in Europe, and is completely off limits for anybody not connected to the military, the US military. So you have to understand also that Frankfurt, for a very peculiar reason, has the largest US consulate in the world. Now, what happened is that the agency got, the CIA got wind of what was trying to be done by the group under the command of General Flynn. And so they immediately ordered some of their military units, CIA military units in Afghanistan, to be flown back to Europe, to Frankfurt. And that's where supposedly the shootouts happened. And unfortunately, 5 DIA people got killed and 1 CIA got killed. Now, it's very strange because before those news came out, we had a message, it was appearing in the press here in the United States, that we lost a helicopter in Sinai. Strangely enough, 5 people American were killed there. Now, the CIA claims that that agent got killed in Frankfurt was killed in Afghanistan. So this is to show you what the intrigues, background, what happened. Now, why there is no official mention of all this by the government of Germany and by our government? Very simple, because it's a hot potato and nobody knows exactly how to handle that and to justify that. I spoke with friends in intelligence in Germany, and they say that the government of Merkel, they don't know how to handle that. And I think that the things here are exactly on the same basis. Now, I don't know if you're familiar. The head of the CIA today is a lady, and strangely enough, she was in the 2014, 15, and 16, she was CIA station chief in London. Now, why is that strange? Because if you remember, we had a scandal that some MI6 people were dispatched from England to United States in order to monitor, in quotes, US citizens. You know that by law, FBI or CIA is not allowed to monitor US citizens unless there is suspicion, and that then they have to advise that thing. So in order to bypass that, the Obama administration managed to convince via the station chief, or the CIA station chief in London, managed to obtain the permission that, I don't remember, 4 or 5 MI6 were dispatched to the United States and did the dirty work there. Now, why is that figure suspicious? She came back and now is head of the CIA. Now, in the CIA, if you look back, there are certain things which are extremely strange. You remember that a gentleman, so-called gentleman, Brennan, was nominated head of the CIA. I personally, and what I'm saying now is shared by a lot of people here, is that nobody understands how Brennan became ever connected to the CIA agency. He, as a student, was a declared communist. Now, he was then, he got involved in the agency and was sent as station chief to Saudi Arabia. And there, that is understood and understandable, let's put it that way, that he became Muslim, because that was the only way that he could gain advance information from the Arab world. Now, that combined with his close connection to the communists as a student, I don't understand.
Will you check on the serum?
Can I go on or? Hello?
I think you can continue. Someone just had their phone off mute.
No, but I mean, okay. So I was saying that it was very strange that he could have such a high position in the intelligence community. But that, okay, it's part of the group of under Obama's umbrellas and the Clinton umbrella, so there is no, let's say the answer is quite obvious. So now we're talking about that. Obviously, the servers which were gained in coming back on the raid on the servers in the Frankfurt airport. Now we have that, and there are, if you analyze that, you have all the proof that the equipment, the election equipment, was connected to Frankfurt, to Iran, and to China. Now, obviously, we can't gain anything out of Iran, nor can we gain anything out of China. But obviously, all the goodies are in the hands of the so-called good guys now here. And this is, in my opinion, only due to the fact that General Flynn had a presidential pardon, and that he could then use all his knowledge, very deep knowledge, to plan such an action. Now, strangely enough, the last judge who had the dossier of General Flynn is now starting to say that he will challenge the presidential pardon of General Flynn. This is, I mean, either that judge is completely out of his mind, or he just wanted to have his 5 minutes of glory, you know, in the media and on the TV. So this gives you practically let's say, the hot potato, which is in Berlin and in Washington. And I don't think that they will try to let it draw in time and that nobody will ask too many questions, why this, why that, and why the other. There is no potential answer. You see, the relationship between Germany and US is excellent. There are some frictional points, like, for example, the fact that we want to reduce number of troops in Germany, and what we will, which in my opinion makes sense, we want to move them to Poland, which is nearer to the Russian border. And the Polish government is extremely in favor of all this. So this is, in my opinion, the picture of what's going on behind the scene regarding the election. I don't want to qualify how my friends in Europe and in the Middle East are evaluating or criticizing or talking about the situation here due to that election mess. We are very easily compared to a banana republic, which in my opinion would be the biggest banana republic in the world. But I mean, you cannot judge that those people who came out with statements of that sort are wrong. It's a complete mess. And I don't understand that. It's the second time officially that we have such a mess. The first one was the Gore-Bush, and nothing was done afterwards to correct all this. And this time it blew up in the face of everybody. So I'm open to questions if you have any on that particular subject.
I think we had two from the studio audience here. The first one is, what were the motivations of Obama for looking to destroy General Flynn?
Very simple. That's an excellent question. I hope that you're prepared to listen to what it is. General Flynn, in his capacity in 2016, beginning 2017, was the only man who had all the names of the deep state. You see, I think that a big mistake was done by the Trump administration right after the inauguration. In my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of my friends, what President Trump should have done was to truncate the three top levels of all those agencies: CIA, FBI, DIA, Department of Justice, and so on and so forth. Nothing would have happened. All those agencies function without those so-called top levels. And then Trump should have had the possibility to replace them with trusted people. There we come into a very gray area as far as I'm concerned. I think that, unfortunately, President Trump has had a series of very bad advisors around him. For example, if you take just the Department of Justice, Sessions, now Barr, now same thing at the Ministry of Department of Defense, Mattis, and now, you see, there are too many things that, in my opinion, with the right people, could have been handled totally differently. I hope I answered your question.
I think so. That sounds like a good answer. The next question we have here is, what do we know of Gina Haspel's, the current CIA director's, current whereabouts? There's been some speculation that she's dead, that she was injured. What's your opinion on that?
I don't know. In my opinion, as I said before, she is the wrong person in the wrong position. I never understood that Trump didn't see through that. His advisors, that's again bad advice. I wouldn't spend a tear if she disappears from the scene.
And then the other question here is, who is calling the shots on the election fraud, and who is the ultimate coordination point for the fraud?
It's an excellent question, but I mean, there it's a little bit of a mess, because at the beginning, everybody thought that Giuliani was in charge of that. But now, as in my opinion, it's more that lady who was the lawyer of General Flynn. She's what I call a hard cookie. She really knows what she's doing, and she doesn't mince her words. And obviously, because of the link she has with General Flynn, she is aware of all the names in the deep state. So this is why she's not walking on eggs.
I think the question from Claire was on the flip side of that: who's coordinating the fraud, rather than the legal team trying to defend against it? Who's on the Democrat side?
That's my personal opinion, don't quote me on that, is the deep state, but if you want to hear names, it's Obama, both Clinton, and I think in the background a little bit they are listening to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, but it's really bad news. She's a leftist, hardcore leftist.
All right.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that's a yes. Okay, so I know we have 3 topics to cover. Should we go on to the next one? Is there? I think I'm looking at the questions in the room. I think some of this will be covered. So why don't we move on to the situation in Europe? We can always come back to some other questions if come into the chat.
I don't know if, I mean, you have to understand that in the last 10, 15 years in Europe, the populist movement gained influence. In France, with Madame Le Pen, I think that next year in the election in France, she is a big contender to the presidency in France. Poland, Hungary, Italy are very strongly embracing the populist movement. And that is why they're trying to copy what happened here with Trump. In my opinion, Trump, you have to understand, Trump was elected because he was not a politician. And he had absolutely no links and interests financially with all that number of senators, congressmen who have been glued to their seat for the last decennium in Washington. So and that was appealing to Europeans. And this is why I think that a lot of changes are happening in Europe, in my opinion, for the best of Europe, because Merkel will disappear, but unfortunately will be replaced by a protege of hers next year. Boris Johnson in England is on shaky ground. In Italy, they have and have not a government. Austria has turned completely to the right. Hungary, as mentioned, Poland as well. The whole thing in Europe is due to the fear created by the influx of those so-called refugees. You have to understand those refugees, I mean, in my opinion, it's refugees in quotes, because if you go and try to define what is a refugee is somebody who flees a danger. Now, as a human being, I would, if a situation would be with my family, I would immediately send my wife and my kids as refugees. But here, 80% of the so-called refugees are males between the age of 18 and 30. The wife stayed in Syria, in Iraq, in Iran, in Iraq. So it's a very strange situation. And this is why that populist movement, on top of everything, tried to block Merkel's approach to refugees, which is open arms. And they are putting barriers to it. And some of them, for example, like Hungary, puts a fence and with the soldiers armed to defend their border. So therefore, the refugee problem is that you have to understand, people in Germany find an excuse for Merkel by saying, yes, but after World War II, we needed manpower to man and to work in our factories. And this is why we let an incredible number of Turks coming to Germany. And the Turks are Muslims. And some of them, some Muslims are good, but some Muslims are not good. And they, the bad ones, obey orders issued by their imams. That creates, and this is why, to a certain extent, the attitude of Merkel is understandable up to a certain point. Now, obviously, the talking now, I'm taking Turkey as part of what they wanted to be part of Europe, but it is, from that point of view, part of Europe. And Turkey is creating problems on a large scale with Greece because of drillings in the Mediterranean area between Turkey and Cyprus and Turkey and Greece. So I personally do not understand that Turkey is still part of NATO. The way that Erdogan behaves, he is an egomaniac. He wants to become the next ruler of the Muslim world. But I don't think that Egypt and Iran will let him come to that point. But that, you see, there is a huge friction right now in Europe between Turkey and Greece. Now, France took a stand, military stand, to protect and embrace the side of Greece. We, in the background, diplomatically, are doing the same thing. So that, I think, gives the overall impression of what the situation in Europe is.
What can, and this is my question, but it might kind of goes to the whole topic. What can you tell us about Steve Bannon and his role in European politics and the populist movement globally?
I personally am in favor of what Bannon did and is doing. He helped Trump a lot. And then after he was unceremoniously discharged, went to Europe and had sessions in England, in France, and especially in Italy. And in Italy, he found a place where he could open some sort of a college or university. And he is still helping directly and indirectly some of the movements in Italy, France, Austria, Poland, Hungary.
Are there, and I don't see any in the chat, but if anyone wants to just speak over the line, if any questions on the European scene?
None.
None, okay.
Okay. So now we come to the hot potato in the Middle East. The Middle East, and I don't know if you realize, there's a tremendous big changes are taking place. They are due to a very simple reason. You have to understand that the Muslim movement is divided very sharply into two camps. One, the good camp are the Shia, the Sunnis, and the other one are the Shias. The Shias are with the head in Tehran. And for example, if you take Saudi Arabia, the rulers are Sunnis, but about 55 to 60% of the population are Shiites. So there is no secret about the fact that the rulers in Saudi Arabia employ and pay Pakistani. The figure, what we hear is about 55,000 soldiers from Pakistan are employed as armed police in Saudi Arabia. Now, from a geopolitical point of view, the big changes are how they tried successfully up to now, as far as I'm concerned, to block the movement ruled by Iran, Tehran. Tehran has always, I mean, from the moment of the advent of the Khomeini, they wanted a direct link with the Mediterranean Sea. So today, in my opinion, and in the opinion of people who are in a position to evaluate that, they say that Iraq is practically a dominion of Iran. It's a puppet, whoever is the president there. So now what they did is then they had the link with some in Syria, the northern part of Syria, and then Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, if you look at that on a map, you see that the link is through the north and gets into the Mediterranean. Now, to counterbalance that, you have Egypt, and now, okay, in the years up to now, people who had, governments who had direct link with Israel were only Egypt, with the advent of Sadat and the peace accord, and then Jordan. Now, that's what it's called in Israel, it's called a cold peace with Egypt. I mean, it's peace on paper, but, and fortunately enough, extremely close collaboration on the intelligence, especially military intelligence. Obviously, that's because of the fact that Egypt has a big problem in the Sinai. There are groups of Shiites there who are creating havoc. Now, the latest is about 2 days ago in Jordan. The king is on shaky grounds. His uncle, who has always he was supposed to be nominated when the father Hussein died, he was supposed to take over, but the father had decided no, not the uncle, but his son. And now the son is on shaky grounds, and I don't know how it's going to go down in the history. You see, you have to understand, Jordan is an artificial entity in the Middle East. I don't know if you know history-wise, it's called the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. There was a Hashemite kingdom in Saudi Arabia under the British rule. And the rulers of Saudi Arabia were in strong disagreement with the Hashemite kingdom. And so when they knocked at the door of the Brits and they said, listen, do us a favor, get rid of that guy, get rid of that family. So what they did, they created a state, Jordan. And they called it Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Now, the father, the old man, the guy who died, the king who died, had very good, extremely good relations even before the agreement with Israel. He was a personal friend of Moshe Dayan. I can tell you, I was once in Paris and in a nightclub. We were there with some friends from Israel, and it was a Russian cabaret, and suddenly the French protected unit came in and said they have to make sure that King Hussein can come in. And they told them, listen, there are Israelis here. The French people went back, and King Hussein said, no problem, my friend. And he even signed some of the passports and some of the airline tickets. So there was no big deal from there. The old man was reasonable. And the son also, the uncle is a little bit of a hothead. And you have to understand, the West, what here is called the West Bank, where all those Palestinians are. Jordan is has the biggest number of Palestinians. And when they started under Arafat, they started to make a mess. The old king, sent his personal guard, and there were about, I don't know the exact figure, but there were a couple of thousand Palestinians were taken care of. The rest fled. Some of the officers fled to Israel and live peacefully there. And the others, the big mass was Arafat, went through to the north of Lebanon. But there, that area was and is a domain of a landlord in Israel, and he said, okay, I want for each Palestinian going through and coming to Lebanon, I want $100. He became a millionaire practically overnight. And that is where Arafat brought all his people to Beirut, and we know the rest is history. So that is let's say, the overall situation in the Middle East. The Middle East has changed because Israel right now, apart from all the direct diplomatic relation and recognition of some of the Arab countries. For example, Saudi Arabia had intelligence cooperation with Israel, I would say in the last 15 to 20 years. There were meetings of Shin Bet, Mossad, in Vienna, in Berlin, in Geneva, in London, quite regularly in order to exchange information on both sides. That's nothing new. You see, Israel right now is also, apart from the fact that it gained recognition inside the Middle East, and that will materialize obviously in a very near future with open diplomatic relationship with Saudi Arabia. But why the Arabs are embracing, let's put it that way, the Israeli? Because they have a common enemy. It's Iran. And they know or think that they know that Israel would be a good partner to be an ally instead of being an enemy. On the other hand, Israel is also working hard on the contacts it has with the countries in the Mediterranean area. They have a very good relationship with Cyprus, with the Greek part, and with Greece. And now with Italy comes also, there are some military maneuvers taking jointly, Greeks flying with the Israelis and with Oman pilots. And you see, it's the Middle East has changed, I think, for the best. That's the opinion of some of my friends, and I would strongly recommend that people look at it from that point of view.
Can you take some questions on this topic?
Yes.
All right. I guess we'll start off with one, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but generally speaking, there's been a lot, or last week there was a lot of press around the meeting, the alleged meeting between Netanyahu, the Saudi prince, and Mike Pompeo. Some people say it didn't happen. Some people are disputing the details. What can you tell us about that alleged meeting?
It did happen.
Did it happen on neutral territory?
Yes,
or
in Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
Listen, you have to understand, things like that are not trumpeted and published on front page, because it's work in progress. This is it will be an incredible step that will completely change the balance of power in the Middle East. Iran is then really in a doghouse.
Well, that kind of leads to the next question is, I think it's fair to say that when Trump took over, he says it himself, he told his people, whatever Obama did do the exact opposite. Assuming we have a nightmare and Biden is the next president, do you think that he would reverse all the gains? Would he be capable of reversing the gains in the Middle East? Or do you think they are too far along, with respect to the developments that have already happened and the position Iran is in? Can you not turn back the clock and make a new Iran deal?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that people are thinking that way, because listen, those are agreements and events which happen from normal established countries. They are entitled to do whatever they feel is in the best interest of their country, with the blessing of today's US government, which was a slap in the face of people like John Ketchup Kerry, that idiot, went out to say that nothing could happen unless a Palestinian state would exist, proven wrong completely. That guy's a dreamer. He should stop and devote his time to ketchup, and that's it. His wife has enough money for that. I have
Very
no, that guy is, in my opinion, is a traitor. And I'm willing to sign that.
Amen.
I think I answered your question there.
What can you tell us about, also that's been in the news, the assassination of the head of the Iranian nuclear program? There has been some speculation in some corners that he defected. And furthermore, who was behind that operation? Was it strictly the Israelis? Was there some kind of a wink and a nod from the Trump administration? What was the motivation at this time?
Listen, operations like that are, in my opinion, fruit of very strong and long-standing relationship. I help you, you help me, and that goes on and on and on. I wouldn't be surprised that in the planning or in the execution or whatever, there would be involvement of the French, the Brits, and the American, and eventually even the Italians. Listen, who did it physically? There are two versions. There's one version that it was done by automats, and the other version is that it was done by humans. Don't ask me, I don't know. And believe me, I don't care. He got rid of that son of a bitch, that's it.
So you don't believe that he actually defected?
It makes no difference. I don't care about that. I don't care how it's done. For me, the best news is it's done. It has been done. The guy is dead. Forget it. And that guy will be difficult to replace for the Iranians.
Mm-hmm. So next question here, I think maybe you answered it a little bit, but and Claire, feel free to expound on your question, but I guess you were asking what are the motivations behind the Saudi Crown Prince's reversal in policy to allow outreach to Israel?
Yeah, and just to expand on that a little bit, I don't know the guy's name, his cousin or whoever was really calling the shots before bin Laden or bin Salman became more powerful, and the previous guy has been linked to all sorts of evil things. So it's just a dramatic change in their policy, and it just is super interesting to me and wondering why.
What are you referring exactly as the change which you are referring to?
So Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, within the last couple of years, has taken over a more powerful position, and the other guy was arrested, I believe, wasn't he? Arrested? Somebody help me out with that.
Yeah, there were 40 people arrested. 40 princes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
And so bin Salman did that.
That's a normal power play in the Arab world. There's nothing new about that. That's whoever wants to gain power has to go in a dramatic way in order to prove his power. And he proved his power, that's all. I mean, they put, I don't remember, 45 people into the Ritz-Carlton, and some of them were hanged by the feet and things like that. Okay, but you see, in the Arab world, nothing surprises me of that. I mean, I'm used to it. I've been there and I've seen it. I heard about it. I've seen it personally, I came back and whenever things like that, I said, okay, I take care and I turn the page. I'm sorry to be that blunt, but there's nothing new. You see, you have to understand that the mentality and the way of thinking of Arabs is completely different to ours, fortunately.
Do you think bin Salman is really truly a reformist, or is it really just as simple as them having a common enemy in Iran?
No, I think that's like I said before. You see, those governments who now recognize Israel and open up the thing, they understand that their enemy, and a real powerful enemy, is Iran. And so they say, okay, what is the alternative? Either we're going to be eaten up, or we can, with good friends like Israel, we can put up a fight if need to be. That's, in my opinion, the way you have to analyze the situation evolving in the Middle East right now. I don't see anything. You see, there are also economic and financial interests, obviously. You see, we have to be extremely careful. Yesterday, there was a message I received that the sale of those F-35 has a question mark. So the message came from the Middle East: careful, if you're making it difficult for us, we will have to find a different source. So this is reality. And then I think that the people here in our government who are trying to make life difficult for that sale are misguided. And I hope it will be corrected before it's too late. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So we have one more question here, I think, on the Middle East, and then I would say if anybody has any questions on any topic, just feel free to ask. Going forward to 2021 and beyond, what is the greatest fear that we should have around Middle East stability?
A misstep by Iran. They are today, from what intelligence is producing as a report, they can be unpredictable. And that could trigger something which will be matched and will be quelled, but it will be at a tremendous cost on both sides. This is why Israel has drills prepared to counter any attack, direct or indirect, initiated by either Iraq or any of their surrogates, like Hezbollah or whatever. That's unfortunately on one side, the situation in the Middle East is now normalized to a certain extent, and on the other side, we have that unpredictable thing. You see, we didn't talk about the mess which is taking place right now in Libya. Libya is fortunately there. The Russians are on our side because Erdogan has sent mercenaries to Libya, and you see, Libya is a huge oil producing country, and right now they are not producing anything. So the interest, obviously, Erdogan wanted to have a bridge on the other side, on the African continent. But in my opinion, we were wrong in backing that so-called temporary government in Tripoli. That should have never happened. You see, we come back to a very old negative way of analyzing the Middle East and Arabs as such. All Arab countries are artificial from that point of view. They are all divided from a tribal point of view. Libya, for example, has 5 tribes. How Gaddafi or the king before managed to have that under one roof? Because he forced those tribes to pay respect to him as the strongest power available. And that is the same thing in all the other Arab Muslim countries. It's a tribal affair. And we cannot go there and say, oh, but you have to, the Western world is different. One man, one vote. They say, listen, you're crazy. We've been going on that way for thousands of years, and now don't comment. The Brits were more understandable when they had the empire. They understood that, and they cultivated the strongest. At the end, some of the strongest had to wind up in jail, but then when they gained independence, they became either prime minister or a president. Take the example in India. Pakistan, same thing. So you see, in my opinion, there's a very little understanding of the culture of the Arab world.
So we have a question here from Kevin, and the question is, did U.S. intelligence have a role in the creation or assist in the creation of ISIS?
ISIS?
ISIS, yes.
No. I think that that is a thing which was created locally, and what is okay? Can I ask a question? What is the reason you asked that question?
That's a fair question to ask. Let's see. Kevin asked it to me, and I don't think he's able to join. But if I could not put words in his mouth, but interpret, I guess maybe the ultimate question is, was Obama in favor of the developments in Syria at that time?
Yes. Yes. The answer is definitely yes. Obama, you have to understand, we're not going into the fact that if he is a Muslim or not a Muslim makes no difference. He is bad news, was bad news, and is bad news. So therefore, and whatever is connected with the Obamas, Clinton, is bad news to begin with. And that includes people like Brennan and so on and so forth. So therefore, it's you have to understand, ISIS was even supplied with sophisticated weapons by us via that stockpile we had in Libya. It went from Libya to Turkey, and then from Turkey to ISIS, and that's how we also lost 4 people in Benghazi. That is, I think, the answer, expanded answer to that question. Any other question?
Let's see, I think another one here.
I'm sorry, if anybody has any doubts about what happened in Benghazi, those people were sent to their death because help could have been sent in time to get them out, or at least to save their lives. You have to understand there is a so-called a U.S. Navy base in Sicily. Strange enough, the Navy base is inland, has absolutely no contact with the sea, and it's manned by Air Force. We had Air Force in Aviano in Italy. We had Air Force in Naples. We had Air Force in La Spezia and in Sicily. From Sicily to Benghazi for a jet takes 45 minutes. So they were sent because they knew too much. It was a good thing from the point of view of Madame Hillary Clinton.
There are some other questions in the chat, but did anyone on the line want to ask a live question? John, you want to ask something?
Ready?
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of people in the Obama administration, the classified deep staters, Peter Strzok's, the Brennans, a lot of them spent time growing up in the Middle East. Strzok, I think, Strzok was in Iran. I think Lisa Page had something there, whether they grew up there, went to boarding school there as kids. These, I see them very friendly with Iran regime, stuff like that. I grew up in my teenage years in Dubai, but I was just a regular teenager. So, but I got the American patriotism before I went. But I think these people, and I see it in my younger siblings that grew up maybe 8-10 years there, are very pro Iran, Middle Eastern kind of things. Does that go to the difference maybe between philosophies of the Obama administration and Trump administration for these deep staters?
Yes, but then I will just give you the answer which I gave practically each and every speech. Our mess today here dates back and started in 1960. Flower Revolution, and so on and so forth. What we created there is then the infiltration of that mode and that way of thinking, leftist way of thinking, to the educational system. And then the educational system that graduated to teachers, professors, then the colleges. And today we're in the midst of that, we're generating generation of idiots, leftist idiots. And this is, we are paying the price for that. That's, I'm sorry, this is, you see, I came back to the United States at the beginning of 2000, and I was surprised by what I saw. My daughter, when we came back, she was 4. So she attended school system here. And from time to time, when she was in high school, she came back. We had always, as a tradition, we have food as a family in the evening. And from time to time, she said, "Daddy, I heard something which is exactly the opposite of what I hear here at home." So once or twice she said that. I said, "Okay, let her go." And then one day she said, "Daddy, I have to tell you what I heard today." And she told me what. And I said, "Who told you that?" She said, "My history teacher." I said, "What?" And then I took information and figured out who that teacher was. You would be surprised. I was flabbergasted. He was an ex-Air Force intelligence officer, complete leftist. I went and I told him, "Listen, I went to a school and I said, I want a meeting with that so-called professor. And I told them, listen, I'm not going to go into details, but I tell you one thing, you refrain for statements of that sort and in a classroom. You can do that privately, wherever you want. You are in a free country, but not teaching that to children who are sucking things like that. No, that I think I gave you the answer there. It's, you see, we have to get out of that thing. In my opinion, it's going to take drastic measures. And I think that people like Biden would be the wrong people. Trump was on the right track from that point of view.
Yeah, I believe
I
he
answered your question.
We had another question here from Jocelyn. She said, Obama and Clinton must pay for their crimes. What do you know about what happened to SEAL Team 6? I think that's referring to the, what's that, Extortion 17, where those SEALs were killed in Afghanistan, brought down by a shoulder-launched rocket, right?
Nothing. You see, it's an unfortunate thing, but that has to be taken as the Department of Defense has to handle that. There's absolutely no other way. We cannot influence that. There's no way, in my opinion. That's unfortunate. That's a very heavy price, but I don't think that there's any other possibility of a solution in that respect.
And then the other question is, what do you feel the best way is to unravel our infiltration in our culture and education system? How do we fight that?
That's a huge task, because you see, it's over 50 years that we're being brainwashed. The entire educational system should be changed. You see, afterwards, my daughter, I sent her to, she was in a private college, and there they asked me to come and speak. And there I understood that the big problem, in my opinion, in the educational system is that history is totally divided and separated from geography. Both things should be taught together, because this is why a lot of people here in the United States, unfortunately, are geography idiots. Let's call it that way. They are absolutely no, you tell them, where is Azerbaijan? What? They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know where it is. So you see, it should be that I was taught history with geography. Whatever history event we were talking about, the professor had a map and was showing it that right there and with pictures and everything. Here, no, two completely different things. Here, my daughter was taught about all the Indian tribes and all that, but didn't know anything about World War I and World War II. So you see, this is the educational system is, in my opinion, a little bit lousy, to be nice.
Seems to show in the culture, yeah. I think we had a comment here from Kevin. He said, regarding your daughter's teacher, history teacher, someone, Sybil Edmonds, I'm not sure who that is, but I guess he had addressed the infiltration in the Air Force intelligence by Turkey. So I'm not sure if that's...
No. That was, it was his, in my opinion, his family environment, and obviously the let's say college he attended or whatever, he was exposed to the left, and that's all. This is where I don't understand that those people have not been caught and vetted by the time they go into the intelligence community. I don't understand that. It's the same thing with Brennan. Brennan should have never been anywhere near to the agency.
Will, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Wallace, just one thing on the Middle East. The United States really strengthened its relationship with India, especially under Modi and Trump. Do you see India playing a role in the Middle East going forward, and the relation and the dichotomy, I guess, with Pakistan? How is India and Pakistan? How do you see that, I guess, pro or con on the Middle East effect?
Listen, it's a very good move with India because it closes the circle around Iran. You have to look at that on a map, and then you start to understand things much clearer. Where is India compared to Iran? Okay, so
Right there, right near it.
See, the answer is there. Listen, for example, people here are surprised by what happened in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is a very close ally, secret ally of Israel. Has always been for years. Why do you think they beat the shit out of the people who came to in Azerbaijan? Because they were trained by Israelis. The Israelis are not there physically now, but they have been there in the past. At the airport you see, Israel had to, before the opening up of the relationship with all the different Arab countries, Israel had to figure out how to get, if need to be, to attack Iran. Because it's not like going to Syria and bomb the nuclear thing. They needed the flight from Israel to Iran is long, so it's impossible. You can't have a resupply in midair and things like that. So therefore, they approached years ago. They approached Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan opened the doors secretly, but that's the way it is. You see, why do you think it's in French? It's called la guerre de l'ombre, the war in the shadows. But that's what happens. You go knock at the door. There are two answers to a request. It's yes or no. There's no alternate. Okay. So the Israelis can knock at the door. If the answer is yes, okay, then okay, this is what we're willing to part and willing to help you. In exchange, what can you offer us? Period. Very simple. You see, it's a when we were kids, we were playing Redskin and Indian and Cowboys the same way.
Okay, we're at 12:15. I know we want to wrap this up latest 12:30, but if anyone, feel free to jump on and ask a question. I don't see anything more in the chat.
Everybody was dissatisfied. That's it.
No, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
No. But anyway, listen, the only thing I can say, if any of you have then later on a question, you can address it to William, and then William will kindly translate it to me. Okay?
Certainly.
I see you have a question. The young lady with the glasses.
Me? No, I don't. I was just going to say thank you very much.
You don't have it. It's my pleasure. I hope that it clarifies certain misconceptions.
Absolutely.
Then if I achieve that, then I'm glad.
All right. John or James, anything you want to say?
No, I just want to thank you both for your time. It was very informative. And I guess if we have any other questions, we'll get back with you.
Well, thank you all for joining. I know we did this on pretty short notice, so thanks for taking an hour out of your Saturday morning.
Okay,
And thank you, Wallace.
no problem. My pleasure.
Okay,
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye. William?